All right, everybody. So welcome to today's webinar on the Farmers Market program. And we're going to go ahead and go through the website. And we have Zoe Francisco here from Central Bank to take us through some of the updates and ways to go through the website. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to her, and welcome, Zoe.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here. So we are going to be going over the essentials of the Homegrown Benefits portal. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me later on. So first, in order to go to your benefits administration page, you will be going to portal.homegrownbenefits.com/login. You will enter in your username and password, which should be the same one you had last year if you were a user last year, and you'll go ahead and log in. Now, what I am demonstrating here is going to be the state agency staff access. So for instance, it provides full capabilities for benefit administration for Casey, Eric, and Nolan for the state, for the full state. However, I thought it would be interesting to show everyone the state agency staff side, because a lot of the things that the local agency staff can do are kind of narrowed down versions of what the state agency staff can do for the whole state. And so I wanted to be able to show you holistically how the system works together as a whole. So first, whenever you log in, whether as a state agency staff or local agency staff, you are going to be brought to your dashboard. Your dashboard will have a, one quick look on your vendor summaries. And of course, as you start to have benefits being produced and start issuing benefits, another program card will come up here, just like it did last year, where it shows the 2024 issuance period, how many recipients you have, how much balance has been spent, etc. So that remains the same for the future. The next tab moving down is going to be the local staff tab. Now, this is how Casey, Eric, and Nolan create local agency staff users for the individual WIC or senior agencies. And so this is essentially how they give you access to your account. The next tab down are the market managers. For Nebraska's program specifically, this is not as important since we are not doing a fully electronic program, but it is built into the system, if that ever becomes an option for the future. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you were these service areas. So this is where we have each agency listed. And of course, Eric, Casey, Nolan, and I set this up prior to the beginning of the season. And so all of the service areas will be here. And of course, each of your local agency accounts are linked to a particular service area to view. Now, the way that we fund each of these service areas starts here at the issuance period. We establish, so Casey, Nolan, and Eric will tell me how much the available funds for the entirety of the season is. So I will set that issuance period for 2024. I will put the total available funds that they have for the program. And of course, I'll establish a start and end date for when the benefits become active and when they expire. And that ensures that no one's able to redeem benefits outside of that issuance period. Now, so let's say, for example, the total for the entire program for the year is $5,000. The way we then allocate that for the future or through the different service areas is through the fundings tab. Another important thing I did want to bring up with the issuance period is that I can adjust the start or end date, or if, for example, there's an extra grant that's brought to the program. So for instance, you're granted another $2,000, we can always adjust this mid-program to increase it to 7,000 so we can start issuing more benefits or extending it if the period is going well. So next, again, moving to the fundings tab. This is how we split that $5,000 among the different service areas for you to issue to your own local recipients. And so I already started a few examples here. So for instance, for Blue Rivers, let's say we gave them 1,000 of the 5,000 total. And for Aging Office of Western Nebraska, let's say we gave them 1,000. Now that means there's still $3,000 left in the entire program. So what Casey, Nolan, or Eric can do is they'll go in here, they will select a service area. So let's say Aging Partners hasn't been given funding yet. We will say that the funding comes from the Nebraska training issuance period or whatever issuance period we established for 2024. and we will put the initial amount that we want to grant for that service area. So let's say that's another 1,000. And that then allocates that amount to you in your service area so that you can then issue up to that amount to your recipients. Another thing I really wanted to point out here that's interesting is that this system allows us for more flexibility as we go through the season. So for instance, with a lot of other states, or maybe we even did this last year, let's say, for instance, Blue Rivers, not as many people are redeeming their benefits. However, we see that Aging Partners has already gone through their $1,000, and it would potentially be useful for the state program to allocate more money to Aging Partners or subtract funds from Blue Rivers. So that can be done through the system as well. And of course, that would take Casey, Eric, or Nolan's permission. But essentially, to do so, let's say Aging Partners, we want to add another 1,000 to them because they're doing great. We want to give them more funds to issue out to their local recipients. So we'll go ahead and add that 1,000, making it our 2,000 total for that service area. And there you go. Now you'll be able to see they now have $2,000 available. On the other hand, let's say you have a service area that may not be performing as well, or you're not seeing a lot of redemptions coming out, and you'd want to, for instance, use the remaining $500 and allocate it to a different service area to allow them to issue more benefits. You can also subtract that. So you'll see the initial 1,000 was subtracted by 500, and so there's 500 left in the service area. So that 500 that you subtracted goes back to the entire issuance period pool for the state. Now that 500 can be reissued to a different service area, or it can just not be reissued. It really just depends on what your state administrator wants to do. And so that's really one of the advantages that I think has been most beneficial for many of our states using this portal. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to show you are how vendors and recipients are entered into the program. Now, first looking at vendors, from my understanding, this is typically something where Casey, Nolan, or Eric will decide whether they are authorized for the year. And so I want to show you how that would be occurring. So right now, you can see that there are a few vendors on the table. If you click show archive, so for instance, when you log in this year, you're going to see that none of the vendors are going to be listed from last year. That's because as of right now, all of them are archived so that they need to be reauthorized in order to receive payments in the 2024 season. So what you would do at that point is just click show archive, which right now I'm not going to do that since there's no one archived really in this test system. But essentially, if you want to, for instance, reactivate someone who was already active last year, let's say that was vendor number 3, you can go ahead and search that number when you have show archive clicked. You will find that vendor, and all you have to do is unarchive them, and they are once again active for the season. On the other hand, if the vendor is completely new and this is their first year getting authorized, what your state agency staff will likely do is create a new profile for them, where you will enter in the name of their stand. So let's say that's farm produce. Let's say they are vendor number 4. Once they log into the app, they will be prompted to enter in their routing or account number if they do end up using the app. Of course, you'll put in their first and last name. So let's say that's John Doe. They will enter in a particular and unique username for this user. So let's say it's just John Doe 1. An email address will also be entered for them, and that's how they receive their confirmation email to potentially sign into the mobile app. So let's say John Doe 1. You can also keep a phone number on tabs for them, and you do not need to set a password for them, as this would prompt them to set their own password when they confirm their account. So go ahead and click submit, and you'll see that farm produce was created and a new confirmation email was sent to that email address that it had on file. And from there, you have all your list of vendors. You can see whether they are ACH ready. You can see whether they have done any transactions that are pending for the day to get paid out at the end of the day. You can edit their information, delete them, archive them, view more of their information, or view them as a user. And of course, these are primarily things that Eric, Casey, and Nolan will be doing, but it's always important to understand how that's being done on the back end. Now, moving to recipients. Now, this one is primarily important for local agency staff because it is the local agency staff that are issuing the benefits during the season. So here I want to show you, this is what it would look like when you log in. You won't see any recipients there as all of them have been archived from the previous year. Now, what you want to do is click Show Archived, and that will show you all of the old recipients that were within your service area at the time. Now, for a state agency staff, they will see all the recipients throughout the state since they have access to the entire state. But as a local agency staff, you will only see the recipients within your service area. So, for instance, let's say Emma Barton. So she was an archived individual who was eligible for benefits back in 2023. Now, let's say she's eligible again for 2024. What you want to do is, again, click that Show Archived. You can search for that individual, and once you find them like this, you can go ahead and click View under their name and click Unarchive. That once again brings them to your main screen of all your recipients within your state or service area. Now, let's say you want to issue a benefit to that participant. Now, you will see these are all of their old benefits, and if this were, I kind of established this earlier in the day as I was getting ready for this tutorial, but essentially you will be able to see their old benefits back from 2023 is what you'll see here. Now, the next thing you want to do to issue them their new benefit is issue them a new hybrid code. Since everyone is getting new checks this year, that means that their existing hybrid code is no longer their hybrid code for 2024. So once you know what hybrid code are on the checks that they will be holding or on the vouchers they'll be holding, all you have to do is click Edit for that recipient. And you can see that hybrid code right here. You'll go ahead and delete their old hybrid code. And then you'll look at the vouchers that are in front of you that you are assigning them for 2024. You will go ahead and search that QR code. So let's say it's 26SW. And you'll go ahead and select that. So that connects their 2024 vouchers to their current profile so that it ties into their name. Now here we just have a precaution that essentially establishes that, hey, when you assign a hybrid code to this individual, you can no longer unassign it from them and assign it to a different recipient. So just know that when you enter in the new hybrid code for 2024 for these recipients, you want to make sure and double check that it is the correct hybrid code and that you truly are issuing to this individual. Once you have double checked that it's the correct hybrid code for that recipient, you can go ahead and click Submit. So here you can see Emma's hybrid code has now been updated to that 26SW code. And so it will tie into the vouchers that she is holding at the market, whether it's scanned by the authorized vendor or whether it is brought to a bank for redemption. Now, to issue them their new benefits for the 2024 season, now that you've established your hybrid code, all you have to do is click Issue Benefit, the same way we did in the previous years. You'll go ahead and click the correct issuance period. And just like last year, it should auto-populate the number of benefits and the amount per voucher. It will have a start and end date automatically populated. As long as those all look correct to you, go ahead and click Submit. And so now you can see those 16 $3 vouchers have each individually been entered into the system. So now let's say Emma went to the market and spent her first $3. Now what you'll be able to see is that you'll have one $3 amount and the remaining balance here will then show 0. And as they work through each of those vouchers, the zeros will keep popping up as well, if that makes any sense. Now, there are also a few different things that you can do with the benefits. If you want to deactivate that benefit, let's say they're no longer authorized, you can go ahead and deactivate that benefit. Let's say they lost their vouchers, as long as it is okay based on your state protocol, you can go ahead and print that QR code for them so they can continue spending the benefits that they have. Or you can also go ahead and email it to them as long as they have an email on file. And that about sums up what we will see for the recipients.
Awesome.
The
And
next,
then Zoe, I think we had a quick question just in between. This was from an individual says, can we print a list of the archived participants?
yes, so that should be a feature that is available by 2024. It's currently in development, so I can't quite show it to you yet, but it is currently in development. As we know, a lot of people wanted to be able to either print and export that list of recipients or be able to, have it on an Excel so you can send push notifications to them. And so, yes, we are definitely working on the ability to
Okay.
export or print that list. It should just be a simple button on there that says print list or export list. Although, as of current, I am not quite ready to show you that yet.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. Thank you for answering that.
Yep, no problem. Okay, now the next thing I want to show you are the benefit transactions page. So for instance, looking here, I did one test transaction from earlier today when I was preparing for this. And so you'll see, what date and time the transaction was made, how much, who the vendor was, and a unique identifier for that recipient. And you can trace that back if you really need to, but we try to keep it relatively anonymous here on the benefit transactions page. Now, of course, if you want to search through them, you can also search by vendor, by program, by service area, by recipient, or by date. Another thing I want to show is that your state agency staff can also create a sale transaction. So, I don't know, let's say in some scenario, a farmer tried to scan a QR code, they thought it went in, but otherwise it turned out it didn't complete through. And they talked to the state or local agency staff. It was worked out with the recipient that we do need to pay this farmer for the produce that was bought since, the transaction wasn't completed for any number of reasons. You can go ahead and create that sale transaction. So all the staff member has to do is click the recipient, click the vendor, establish the amount that you're trying to transfer, and you'll go ahead and click submit. And that'll pop up right there. Now, we usually send out payments within 24 to 48 hours of the transaction. So usually what happens is everything that's transacted for within today are going to be batched out tonight to be sent out the next day. So that's why they can usually expect it within 24 to 48 hours. This ACH transferred column over here will tell you so this happened today. This says it hasn't been ACH transferred yet because we haven't reached the end of the day. It hasn't been sent out yet. But by the end of the day or by tomorrow, this will then say yes. Another thing we're working on is we are trying to ensure that all transactions that are redeemed, whether it's through the mobile app or whether it's brought physically to a bank for deposit, they should all pop up here for consolidated reporting. So for instance, let's say that this transaction was actually deposited by check, then you should be able to see that here as it will say, yes, physically deposited. Now, the last thing I want to show you is the reports tab. And I believe this has been pretty useful in terms of end of year reporting for USDA. Once again, all it does is you'll put in a date parameter for your search. It will tell you for WIC how many of each category there is, the number of benefits redeemed, how many households were there, how many was issued, and that gives us the ratio between the amount of benefits issued and the amount of benefits that were actually redeemed. And so if you go to the senior FMNP report tab, it'll do the exact same thing. But of course, at least for this test program, no transactions have been ran for the senior side yet, but otherwise it would populate on this area as well. Now, very quickly, since I showed you the state agency staff, I also wanted to clarify for local agency staff how this works on your end. So for local agency staff, it's generally the same kind of information, just limited down to your particular service area. So local agency staff members will also be able to see their dashboard with a vendor summary and the issuance period card, just like we did last year for your particular service area. Similar with the recipients, all your local agency staff will have a list of just their own recipients. Same thing with the archive process and creating new ones. The last thing I wanted to let you know is that we are working and developing access to the benefit transactions tab, but on the local agency staff side. So I know in 2023, there were some frustrations in terms of local agency staff wanting to investigate a transaction, but they couldn't do so from the local agency staff side. So last year, what they had to do was go to the state agency staff member to try and get some help and information. So in order to prevent that this year, we are developing the feature and capability for local agency staff to see benefit transactions as well, but those are only going to be benefit transactions for their particular service area. And with that said, I mean, that's everything that I have on the portal. From the feedback I've gotten, usually while it is a difficult transition at the beginning, a lot of the vendors and staff members have eventually found ease in it in the long term. So hopefully it works for you as well. You can change your password or otherwise log out.
Awesome, Zoe. Thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful. I think that homegrownbenefits.com, and I will just send out along with the recording of this just the reminder link for this as well, to just make sure people can maybe get on and log on and just make sure that they can have access. So if there's any issues with any logins, whatever, we can get them resolved prior to our season this year. So we'll definitely have that out. Well, thank you very much, Zoe. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Zoe, I've got some questions.